Today we have a great chance to listen lecture on future and the role of European Economic and Social Committee in the decision-making processes in the EU. Of course, when it deals with the European Economic and Social Committee, this also means some sort of questions and discussions about the European social model and what actually will happen with Europe. So today we have a lecture by the President of the European Economic and Social Committee, Mr. Henri Malos, who came to our faculty and who will explain his vision on future scenarios and who will also explain the role of European Economic and Social Committee. Also, after the lecture of Mr. Malos, there will be chance to ask questions. So, dear students, I would like to encourage to use this really great chance and to ask all those questions which are very important for you, for your studies, for your works, and to find out the vision and views of Mr. Malos. So, Mr. Malos, the floor is yours. So,
hello, everybody. Thank you for the applause. I hope you will get applause at the end of my speech, too. And I won't disappoint you. So I will make some comments, and then I will be happy if you have questions. So I will try to make it as short as possible. So I ask colleagues to make the sign if it's too long, specifically because the hours is appropriate for sleeping time after lunch, so I'll try to keep your concentration. First of all, I would just thank the Latvian EU presidency, which is present here, for this opportunity for me to meet you. It's a great honor for me to meet the students. First of all, I understand that some of you are students in political science. It's true? Yes? So I was student in political science too. That was a long time ago. You cannot imagine even so long time it was, and it was mainly in Paris. So I make my study in France. I'm Corsican, but Corsica still belongs to France, so I'm French. And since April 2013, I'm president of European Economic and Social Committee, which in fact was one of the dream of my life. Not to be president, but to be member of a European institution and to chair a European institution. I would just explain to you why, in fact, it was one of the dream of my life. First of all, the dream of my life has been for, I have the age of 13, 14 years old, the European construction. For a very simple reason, is that I was born in '54, so let's see, 60 years old. Unfortunately, it's very sad, but that's life. And when in my childhood, I was surrounded by stories about the World War II, as you were probably, including now, and about what we control the hate between European nations, and mainly for our case, French, the dispute with the Germans. And when I was 12, 13 years old, due to my education probably, I found that so stupid that neighbors were fighting to each other, they were creating hate. As I was learning German language, I have a pen friend in Germany, which is a very nice girl, I remember the photo. So I was just probably by intuition thinking that if all the European nations don't find a way to work together, there will be no chance and no future for me and for all our generation. So my engagement for Europe is a personal, private, political, personal engagement. And I had this chance, thanks to my parents, thanks to my French education, to like the idea of European Union, to be able to travel in the European Union at that time in the, I would say, western part of Europe. Although when I was 20 years old, I had the chance to, because I got friends in Poland, to arrive in Poland, so to pass by the Iron Curtain and to learn Polish language, to be a student in Warsaw after political science in Paris, to meet Mr. Lech Wałęsa, and to understand the other part of Europe. And I can say that at 20 years old, it was for me obvious that Europe should be reunified, but this Berlin Wall, Iron Curtain was the most stupid thing that could exist, to prevent people to meet, to prevent Europeans to be together. I even remember when I was a student in Warsaw, I wanted to go, I apologize, not to Riga, but my idea was to go to Vilnius, to Lithuania, and I went to the embassy of the Soviet Union, because it was in 76, 77, and I asked that I wanted to go to Vilnius because it was interesting in the Polish minorities in Lithuania. And the answer I got from the quite nice man in the consulate was, why do you want to go to Vilnius? And I explained, I just want to visit. I'm interested in history. I'm no, and at the end they told me, no, you can't, because you're not allowed. I have a car, so you're not allowed to go. But they told me you're allowed to go to Moscow. So you can take the train, go to Moscow, stay in Moscow, and then you can in Moscow go to the not what's exactly the name, the representation of the Lithuanian Republic, and then you can ask them and meet them and put questions to them there in Moscow, but not to go to Vilnius, but go to Moscow, and then you can meet Lithuanian people in the delegation of representation or something like that of Lithuania in Moscow, and they told me that I have to pay quite high price to get this visa. So I didn't want, and at the end I was stopped there. And I remember too that it was a shock for me, in fact, when being in Poland, I tried to reach the border of Soviet Union at that time, to Lithuania, and I saw the second Iron Curtain, because in fact it was a second Iron Curtain. So my dream has always been to be not just the reunification, reconciliation between French and Germans. It was the first step, but the second step for me was the reunification of all the European continent. And I was, I say, literally shocked to see that in the 70s, I experienced with my own eyes, there was two Iron Curtains. The Iron Curtains limiting as East and West, Soviet bloc and East and the West, but also the Soviet Union itself was, I think, protected, so-called protected from the other countries by a second Iron Curtain. So today, it's so pleasant and so happy to come here, to talk to you, but everything is over. Some of you are so young that you even were born after the fall of the Berlin Wall, but we celebrate some days ago. And I was very happy to be here, to spend one whole week here in Latvia. I participate to the, you can see, 11th of November celebration. Just mentioned, but this is a big symbol for me as French, because 11th of November is a bank holiday in France too. We celebrate the end of the First World War. You celebrate 1919, we celebrate 1918, because 1918, 11th of November, signature of the agreement in Versailles was the end of the war and the defeat of the Germans. But it's the same day, and it's a big honor for me to be today with you. As I mentioned, I'm a European by heart, not by career, not by any other purpose. Second thing I would like to tell you, of course, it's about the European Economic and Social Committee. I told you that it was my dream, so my dream to work for Europe, to be engaged in Europe, but my dream to work in the European Economic and Social Committee. It's a sort of vocation for me. It can look funny, but for part of my colleagues or the staff who work in our institution, but I would like to explain to you why and try to be convincing. If I'm not convincing, put me question, and I try to be more convincing. The European Union has started, as you know, it was the concept of the European Union was exactly for the reason I've explained to you. That means that was for some persons very clever, who after the World War II, it was Jean Monnet, Robert Schuman, Konrad Adenauer, some others, including people from Latvia, from all parts of Europe, who were thinking that, okay, enough is enough blood, enough death, enough destruction, enough. So Europe after World War II was totally destroyed. Some cities were totally destroyed. And I was yesterday in, what was the name of the city? I always forgot. Jelgava, and you can see in the city the same thing. You can see that all the city was totally destroyed after World War II, in '44, in fact, and this is a symbol of Europe. We visited the tower of the church, but there was a big church, beautiful church. The first Lutheran church of Europe was built in Jelgava, and totally destroyed. Just the tower remained. So this all Europe was like Jelgava. All Europe was destroyed, more or less, of course, but all Europe was like that. So the founder father, when they created the European Union institution, construction, Jean Monnet who was the founder father, has his words, but we don't unify states, countries, we unify people. Nous coalisons des peuples. So it's the European of the people. So if we build the European Union of the people, we have to have institutions where the people will be represented, not just government, not just institution. This is why, from the beginning, in the '51, with the coal and steel community, '51, probably if you're a student of political science, you should remember that the start of the European Union is not '58, but it's 15. In fact, '51, the implementation of a coal and steel community, where from the beginning, so aside from institution with, I would say, staff officials, this is the European, the high authority, which become the European Commission. Beside of the European Council, that means the government, there had been always institutions in the European Union which have to pretend to represent the citizens, the civil society. This is why in '51 already Jean Monnet, Robert Schuman create a parliamentary assembly which become now the European Parliament, and has now a co-decisive power, co-decision power that we didn't have a beginning. And in the same times, we have established a consultative committee composed at that time in '51 by representatives of workers and employers and consumers of, at that time, the steel and coal and steel community. And this has become in '58, when the European community was established, the common market was established, the European Economic and Social Committee. So we exist since '58, officially, in fact '51, but officially '58, as one of the European institutions. We are even considered by the protocol, I think the people from the protocol here with us from the Lithuanian presidency, as the 5th European Union institution. We are different than the others, because in the other institution, in the European Parliament, you have politicians. I have nothing against politicians. I even myself partly make politics. But it's people who are organized through their political views, political opinions. But we are the European Economic and Social Committee. Our composition is made by citizens who represent not political parties, but they represent various interests. So in our committee, and it was fast from the beginning, still the case, we are divided in 3 groups. We can say 3 groups, 3 parts. One part is representative of employers, of a business. One part is representative of the workers, the trade union, and one other part is representative of NGOs, all kinds of NGOs, consumers, people who fight for a better environment, for sustainable development, farmers, fisher, women's association, youth association, students association, all these things that today, and I know that Latvia is very engaged in NGOs. You have a lot of NGOs. I hear that every year it's 2,000 NGOs more are created in Latvia. So one of the countries where, by the size of population, there is so many NGOs. So all these interests are represented in our committee. We are just 350 members. With various seats decided by the treaty, how many by country. So it's 7 for Latvia, it's 24 for France. It depends on the size of country. So for Latvia, you have 2 employers, you have 2 representatives of trade unions, and you have 3 representatives of NGOs. Could have different composition. For France, when we are 24, there is 8 employers. I'm among the employers, 8 trade unionists, and 8 NGOs. So we are all over 350, 53 today, but officially 350. And we work like a small parliament. That means that we are asked by all the other institutions to give our opinions, to give our view on everything what happened in the European Union, all legislation, all law, all proposals. We give our opinions and we try to represent the general interests of all these various interests to find the right balance between all these various interests. We are consulted by the other institution on everyday basis on all kinds of topics. And just to give you some example, the oncoming Latvian presidency will start, as you know, their duty 1st of January 2015, ask us already to give some opinions, some report on 4 topics. One topic is about sustainable development, one topic is about competitivity for the European Union, how to improve the competitivity. One report is about healthcare, how to promote healthcare for inclusive all part of European Union population with best practice among the EU member states, and how to develop ties and links on civil society, business, trade union basis with Central Asia, as Central Asia is one of the priorities of the Latvian presidency. So we start to work, and we start to work among our group with our colleagues from different countries, from different interests to work and to be more efficient. So why I love to join this institution? Because I think that this is the most, I would say, original institution. Because if you see the European Commission, of course, they have the money, they run they put the, I would say, the strategy for the European Union, but the people there who are working there are so officials. So they stay in Brussels. They are quite very well paid, which is so far so good for them. But the danger is that at a certain time they will lose the sense of the reality. They will lose. They could become bureaucrat or technocrat. This is why they have to be controlled. They have to be under control. The European Council is the government. Government decides. These are the politicians. European Parliament's politicians. But we are different. We are people coming from the real life. All my colleagues, for example, my Latvian colleagues, you can find them 2 or 3 days per week, for some of them in Brussels, but the other part, they will be here active in trade unions, employers, NGOs. You can meet them, and they know you, and they can talk to you, they can come and discuss to you. So they are really in the real life. So we are the only institution which people coming from the real life. Some of my colleagues are farmers, they have a real farm. Some of my colleagues are fishermen, they have a boat. Sometimes they go to fish in the sea. Some of my colleagues are active in NGOs, so they are running these NGOs. Some of my colleagues are employers, they are businessmen, they are real business women or businessmen, they are in the same time running their own business. And I think this unique originality, to be the only European institution composed by people who have a part of this, because we are not paid. Forgot to tell you, we are not paid. We come we work in Brussels. Of course, we are reimbursed for our expenses, but we come on a voluntary basis. We are paid by our own organization, or by a company, or by a trade union, and when we just come to Brussels because we believe in European Union, because we want to help, and we want to make the European Union more citizens and civil society friendly. So this is the unique thing on this institution. Following the protocol, we are the number 5, the 5th European Union institution, and I'm trying, since my election with my colleagues, we try to increase our influence, because we think that we are not enough heard, not enough listened, that we are not enough respected. This is why I've signed some months ago, it's interesting for you, students for political science, I signed an agreement with Mr. Schulz, the President of the European Parliament, where we have developed our activities and our complementarity with the European Union Parliament. For example, we are now for the European Parliament, because we assist the European Parliament, we are making impact assessment, ex-post impact assessment on EU policy to check how the European Union policy are acting on the reality, are impacting the life of the people. I just give you one example. The European Union has developed for the last 10 years a lot of programs concerning youth employment, concerning education, and we are now with our colleagues from trade union, employers, NGOs, assessing this European Union policy to check in countries like Latvia or others how this program works, if they are good, if they are bad, what is to improve, and then we come back to the Parliament, and when the Parliament has to renew the legislation, so we can tell them the society, the civil society wants to improve, or for example, in other case, we have launched an assessment on some regulation in the single market, where we say that there's too many regulations, so we ask the European Union, we ask the European Parliament to reduce the legislation, to simplify the legislation. So this is our contribution. We try to make the European Union more, I would say, civil society friendly or citizens friendly, to avoid that there will be too many regulation, and to avoid and to push for some priorities. And now we'll come to the last part of my presentation, because I want really to have time for, it's okay, time for question and answer to your question about the future of the European Union and how I can see this future of European Union. I speak very frankly. I have 35 years of something like that experience in the European Union, and I will say honestly that I'm quite worried. I'm quite worried, I'm quite concerned that we could face in the next years a very difficult moment. And it will probably surprise you, but my main worry is about the growing gap between citizens, population, and the European Union institution. It's the case in my country, in France, it's the case in Germany, it's the case in UK, it's particularly in UK today, it's the case in a lot of European countries, it's the case in the southern country. Since my election in 2013, I've traveled in all the member states. I've now visited already 12 member states, where like here, I not just go and see I met today in the morning Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs, very nice and very useful, but I try also to meet you, students, bloggers, political analysts, citizens on the street. And what I feel is that there is a big I would say the people are not happy at all with the European Union, how it works. It's the case, of course, in the country of the South, because they have been hit by austerity measures coming from Brussels. Here you have been hit by austerity measures also, but in other circumstances. But I feel that there is a growing, I would say, unsatisfaction towards the European Union institution. And for me, and all the sondage, all the opinions polls show that. And we saw in the last European election, 25th of May of this year, that the growing Euroscepticism, decreasing of participation of voters, and this is for me the biggest danger for the European Union. If the European Union institution lost the confidence of its citizens, I think it's the end of the dream. We say it's the end of my dream. Okay, it's very sad, but that's life. But I don't want that it will be the end of your dream, the end of the dream of all, mainly the population, who was cut from the democracy, from the free world by the two iron curtains, like the Latvian. You have restart your nation, your national adventures as a nation 25 years ago, 24 years ago. You have joined us, and we are very thankful that the Latvian, the Baltic nation, and all the others have joined us. And now we don't want to see this dream be, I would say, delete in a sort of bureaucratic mess. And today it's mainly a bureaucratic mess. I'm sorry to say on a very brutal way, I'm not a diplomat. And this is, I think, the only interest of our institution, because we have this capacity to speak frankly, loud, and to say the truth. Today, when I travel around the countries, I met entrepreneurs who are fed up with the excess of regulation coming from the European Union. I met young people who are quite worried about the future, and you can see that today, and I see the situation of my son, of my nephew, of my niece, to speak personally, because we cannot speak in terms in general. Say speak about. I can see that today, even for French young people, with some exception, very difficult to get a job. And when you go to Spain, when you say that half of the youth is jobless, and you go to Greece, it's 60%, and you go to Portugal, 40%. Latvia, the situation is better, but it's not so good as well. You can see that the young people, too, are not very happy. They say, what is this European Union where, for example, when you are a young person with diploma in Portugal, in Greece, and sometimes in Latvia, you see that there is no job opportunity in your own country. You will have to move. It's good to move. Mobility is great. But when I was a student, French student, I decided to move to Germany for my studies. But I was not obliged, it was my choice. But today people who are obliged to move to get a job because there is no change in their own country. This is not the European Union I dream. It's not why I've fight for European Union. When you see the farmers, the common agriculture policy was something splendid. We have made the we've been able to for own consumption. But today, today is not satisfactory at all. When you see the environmental, when you see the energy, so there's so many. When you see the employees, for example, the workers, you can understand that. For example, if you are a worker in France in the building industry, where due to the social protection law, but that's the thing that the people have fight during generation for that. When you see that there is now the social dumping of workers coming from other, including European Union countries legally for less than 3 months, who come take the job because they are paid 3 times or 4 times less than the local workers. So you can understand that these people, when there is European election, they won't vote for Europe, they will vote against Europe. And this makes that in France, for example, we have 25–26% of vote for Marine Le Pen and the National Front, who want to go out of the Eurozone. Or you can see the answers of the UK people, where they could have a referendum in 2016 or 17, and that UK could leave the European Union. So we are not satisfied by the way the European Union is ruled today, and I feel responsible for that, and I have a great hopes now that I expressed today to your Prime Minister, to your Minister of Foreign Affairs, I will express tomorrow to your President, Speaker of the Parliament, that during the Latvian presidency, because Latvia has suffered so much, suffered from the I would say Nazi, suffered from the Soviet occupation, suffered from the crisis in 2008, with all the diversity of Latvia today, but you will help us and help the person of goodwill in European Union. And I think that Mr. Juncker, Mr. Dombrovskis, now the new, one of the new Vice President of the Commission, Mr. Schulz, President of the European Parliament, Mrs. Mogherini, the High Representative, will speak here in this university in 1 or 2 hours, I think, that we will make a real change in the European Union, to make the European Union be more proactive, to answer to the real needs of the citizens. First, we all hope that we could have in the next months a big investment plan. Mr. Juncker announced that of 300 billion euros to support education, because we think education needs more support. I think you agree. I saw yesterday, I visited 2 days ago the other university, the Technical University of Riga, and they expressed the same wish, but they have shortage of funding. More support for research and development, more support for I would say investment, for entrepreneurship. So we hope, and the end of austerity, which will create jobs for the young people. We would like to see more investment in the digital world, digital agenda. I know that Latvia is very well equipped for that. I visited some minutes ago, some hours ago, your beautiful library, and I think it's wonderful what you have achieved. I really congratulate. It's wonderful when a nation understands what is the value of the culture, what is the value of investing in books, I would say in the knowledge society, and I think I really congratulate Latvia for that, and I think symbolic the fact that the Latvian presidency, European events will take place in this library. I think symbolic is a very high symbol. We support the idea of Mr. Juncker and the others to invest again in the social dimension in the European Union. I support the concept of Mr. Juncker to invest in social dialogue. I know that in Latvia you have a very strong, very active social dialogue, and I'm very happy for that. I think it's very good model too, because you should have strong social partners, employees federation, trade union. This is the way where a society is well balanced and when the interests of everybody are respected. We support the idea with Mr. Juncker to have more common policies. For example, in energy, in migration, where it's absurd today due to the size of our countries to have our own policy. And for example, for energy, that each of our head of state or prime minister is going to Moscow to ask the better price for gas, and not to have a common policy, which we could have better deal. It's so obvious, but why to wait so much? To have a single migration policy. And you see the migration coming today from Ukraine or from East, because you are in Latvia. I'm come from South of France. I can see, mention that, Corsica, and I can see when I visit Italy, Greece, Spain, you can see the migration coming from the south, and the fact that we don't have a common policy, and we see we have an unhuman policy. Since the beginning of the year, more than 4,000 persons died in the Mediterranean Sea trying to arrive to Europe, and as European, I feel ashamed of that. I think we should think it's not the European Union I dream, but we are not able to take care of the people who come, or to allow them or not to allow, but to have clear policy and not the mess that we have today. So I support all this new, I would say, wind of change, this new impulse for European policy, because I think that if we succeed in the next month, in the next years, then we can come back and be proud of being European. But if we don't succeed, I'm afraid that it could be, I say, the last chance for Europe. I'm proud of everything that we have achieved, that we have achieved peace, that the Iron Curtain has fallen down, that we have now the mobility, you can travel, the Erasmus program, but everything is in danger if the citizens stop to have a trust, stop to be confident toward the European Union institution. So this is the challenge, and this modest European Economic and Social Committee, the fifth European institution, not the biggest one, with 350 members, something like 700 staff, we want to participate to the change, and we want to help to save the European dream, because we really think that this European dream is a chance for everybody. So this was my message to you. I'm now very happy to answer to your possible questions. Thank you very much.
Faculty of Social Sciences, and I would like to ask a question about how you see how these some of the problems that you described, how they can be solved. You mentioned, for example, youth unemployment, these enormous figures in countries such as Spain and Portugal, and at the same time that there is this problem of austerity, but we also know that these countries have had budget deficits. Of government debt is, and hence the question: well, how can these economies be stimulated without hitting the wall in terms of even higher level of government debt? So, thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to remind you how the crisis came, because the crisis didn't start in Greece or in Spain or in Portugal. Crisis started in the US, in the financial markets, because of a tendency which is still existing of, I would say, artificial growth by the financial markets. But too much money, too much finance is going to the financial markets and not invest in the real economy. This was the start of the crisis. The crisis hit Europe and hit very severely Latvia. Latvia found its own way, and I think we all admire the situation. Of course, we know that there was a lot of suffering in that. But the reality that the crisis starts like that, and not start because of a budget deficit of Greece, Portugal, or Spain. And why European Union, Eurozone, was hit, I would say, more severely than the rest of the world, because it was hit more severely than the rest of the world. There was a lot of theories, but I think the reality is that in the countries where you are responsible for your money, you are responsible for your economy, you can decide to change the policy, to adapt with a fund, to adapt the value of your money. The European Union, it was not possible, because facing the crisis with one single monetary zone, the Eurozone, it was before Latvia joined the Eurozone, the countries like Spain, Greece, Portugal, and even France, we were not able to have our own monetary policy, because it was the monetary policy adopted for the Eurozone, adopted by the European Central Bank, with, I would say, very restrictive monetary policy. So when you have restrictive monetary policy, in the same time when you have some structural deficit, because it was structural deficit in Greece, Portugal, Spain, but they were not able to use the monetary instrument to fight about that. So they were stuck. And the choice, you remember, the choice for Greece, the choice for Portugal was or to leave the Eurozone And then if they have left the Eurozone, they could, I don't say that was the solution, but who could have their own devaluation of the currency and go by their own way. But they couldn't do that because part of the Eurozone. So they had to have these austerity measures who has as counter effect to have decreased their GDP drastically, 30% for the case of Greece, with a lot of misery, unemployment, growing unemployment, not just for young. And Portugal is in the same case. So this is the main reason. The main reason of the crisis is the fact that for the Eurozone countries, due to the fact of this of a single currency, and that there will be no common economic policy, no possibility for example, to have Eurobonds to buy commonly the deficit of each country, has been, of course, much more serious for the weakest part of the Eurozone, and the weakest were this country of the South. And why they were the weakest? They were the weakest not because, don't believe that the people from the South are laziest because they live under the sun. If you believe that, okay, but there's no possibility to further discussion. It's because they came from a quite lower economic development, and in the 80s, in the 90s, supported by the European Union, there have been a lot of public investment programs who had developed loans, developed credit, and they have a quite weaker economic situation because they have to regain their handicap, their structural handicap coming from the past, because this country have been dictatorship or have suffered from others. And when the crisis has hit in this country, as they were not possible to use the financial means, the monetary means, so they had these structural problems, and this is very, very difficult for them. So now your question, how to do that? So just to understand that it's not because they are in the South. It's because of history, because of the situation, because of the, so blaming the, of course they have not very reasonable policy. Sometimes we have pushed them to do that, because we have in the European Union has pushed the Greek to increase their deficit, to buy, say, for example, Greece as a member of NATO has been pushed to increase its military expenditures. This was increases its deficit. Greece had during years the highest defense budget of all the European Union because of the situation with Turkey, because with NATO incentives. So we are all co-responsible. And now I think that we are all co-responsible to help these countries to restart their economy. But restarting the economy means probably what Mr. Juncker proposed, to have investment coming in a way with European loans, with Eurobonds, with European Investment Bank, European Central Bank, to invest, not just invest in public infrastructure, but to invest in private business, to support local production, to support their internal market, to develop the internal market, to develop also the skills, because there is a lot of problem in the education system in this country. This country needs a lot of reform. We all agree this country needs a lot of reform, as you had a lot of reform in Latvia. But the problem is that with too much austerity, as the European Union has imposed them, and I was last month in Portugal, too much austerity kills at the end all possibility for restart the economy, for restart the growth. When you have a business, when you have no customers, when you have a decrease in wage for everybody. So we will go to the shops, we'll go to the business, we'll use the constructions, we'll use nobody. So you destroy all the economy. And I'm totally against this idea of a Europe divide between North and South, or East and West, where you will see the production in the North and the people in the South. We just, I don't know, welcome the tourists. This is not my idea of Europe. We have to restart the economy, to restart the business. So we in the modestly at our level, in our committee, what we are doing, we are developing good practice on education, developing vocational training, skills apprenticeship, because including in this country, there's a problem of matching the skills and the need of the industry and the need of the company, because there are too many lawyers, for example, and not enough engineers. I think the same in Latvia is what I hear during this day. So we have to reorient the education sector. We have to develop entrepreneurship, because in this country too, in my region of origin, Corsica, for example, there is a lot of opportunities for young people who want to start their business. But people are not motivated to start the business. They prefer to work as an employee in civil as a civil servant. I think it's everywhere the same. So we have to develop entrepreneurship program to explain to young people that there are a lot of opportunity. I always give example in my hometown, Bastia. I know some youngsters from our local university, very good in music. They have created a company which is called eMusic. They're teaching music by internet, by Skype, and they are very successful. They create 17 jobs. So there's a lot of opportunity in the hand of everybody. But this movement has to be developed. So I'm confident for the long term, and I think that. But I'm much more a microeconomic than microeconomic than a macroeconomy. I think that small things at local level is always possible to support jobs and employment. And definitively for the country of the South, we have to support their growth, to help them financially in the next years. But this is the cohesion of Europe is dependent from that. But I will definitely not blame, specifically not the people of these countries. Of course, they had a corrupt politician, but I don't think it's just them. I think it's all of us.
Hi, I'm a French journalist. I'm traveling here with Mr. Malos and the French delegation. I'm just looking for a student who speaks French, maybe, or at least English. I've got one question about your country or your vision of the EU. Okay, I have to take some. Okay, thank you.
More questions, comments? So, is there anyone? Okay, while students are trying to formulate their questions, I have also one question. And actually, the aging society is also one of the key challenges for all European Union together, and for each EU country particularly. How you see, what might be the methods, steps, tools, how we could face this challenge, because this really would have an impact on labor work, this will have impact on economy, and this will have impact on social issues as well. So this is one of the broad challenges, aging society.
Yes, first of all, I think we have we all face demographic challenge, and I think that we could not be satisfied by that. European Union has a demographic challenge, and it's so. I studied political science, not economy, but don't need to learn economy to understand that in a country where the population is decreasing, you cannot have growth. It's I think just a child for 6 years old child can understand that. So I think you should be concerned also by the demographic challenge of all Europe. We'll see, except for my country and I think UK and Ireland, but all the other countries see the decreasing of the population. This is a big concern. So how we face that in 30, 40, 50 years? So we have to think. This is why I will probably not be very popular to say that, but it's not. But we have to open our borders for migrants, or to restart to make more babies. But we have no choice if we want to have our economy sustainable. because your question about the aging population, it's a question, the first question, there are a lot of aspects, but the first question is the sustainability of our social model. Our social model is a model where after 40, 42, 43, 38, it's not important, but years of work, you have a possibility of retirement. But if you have a possibility of retirement, someone has to pay. And who has to pay? If you have a less and less active population and more aging population, we will pay that. We'll pay the social model. Because the aging of population is, I think we should be all very satisfied by that. It's thanks to the progress of medicine that our life is longer. I told you that I got 60 years old, and I was, two weeks ago, our former president, Mr. Giscard d'Estaing, came to give me some distinction, and he said, Henry Malos, you are just at the half of your life, because life expectation today in France are something like 120. So it's miraculous, but that's the reality. But it means that after 60, 70, it's not a question of years. It's difficult to continue your work, and then you have to give working possibility for the young generation. But who will have to pay? And who will have to pay if we don't make enough babies, and or if we don't open our borders to migrants? The European Union will become an aging society, and I would say an aging society is something in the history, and I'm a historian too. It's not something very good, because aging society are very conservative, not open to progress, not dynamic. And when you see all the rest of the world who is not aging, it's just the European Union, Japan, European Union, partly the United States, but not so much. And why? Because the United States will open their border. If we close our border and consider that we should keep this trend, I think it's the decline of the European Union. So this is my first remark. The second remark is that the aging society means also that as life expectations are higher, but there are new needs created by the, I would say, silver generation. I heard this word of silver generation here in Latvia. There is a silver generation program. I don't know the name in Latvian, but for education, IT course we heard that support by your Minister of Education. So silver, that means white or silver hair. But there is a lot of opportunity for these people to continue to be trained, to develop new services. So it's a lot of opportunities. Opportunity for yourself, for myself. Say, I just half of my life. It's great to have a good time in front of me still. But in the same time, it's also a lot of opportunities to learn, to long life learning. So I don't see, personally, I don't see the aging, to answer to your question, the aging society as a problem, because it's a lot of opportunity, it's a lot of job creation too, because when you come to people between 60 and 80, so we are very young, so we don't need any special assistance, but after 80, after 90, you can see the healthcare's problem. There are a lot of new jobs, open new jobs. There's a question of housing. There are a lot of which can create business opportunity. So the aging society is a reality, and we should be happy of that, because this means that our expectations are higher. But in the same time, we don't have the demographic impulse, but in the same time we have also a growing young generation, adult generation, then it's a real danger. So I think combined with high birth growth and open arms migration policy, aging, I'm not afraid of aging society. I think in the contrary, this creates more opportunity, jobs opportunity, and opportunity for us. But I would like to make you aware on this question of demographic challenge. And I think a nation, a country who sees population decreasing is a nation who is dying. And I don't think that you want that the Latvian nation will die. So you have to think about that. And my other message is that don't be afraid of migration. I see that in my own country, in France. Today we have this nationalist party in the sense of anti-European and anti-migration movement, National Front, with against migration, with against, but I think all the creativity of the nation I belong has came from the migration. We have during centuries migrants from all over the world, mainly from Europe, but also from Northern Africa, and it has bring all the creativity. Look at the Americans. I think the strength why the US are still the strongest power in the world, probably because they have welcomed Latvians, Lithuanians, Poles, Russians, people from all over the world, Africans. This has makes now people from Asia. This makes their creativity. When the countries close the border, don't want any migrant, don't want any diversity, don't accept the others, it's a dying population. So I think for the aging population, for the aging problem, I see that very positively. Condition is that we have a demographic boom, increasing of birth rate, and open the border for migration. I'm sorry if I'm provocative.
Yeah. So, more questions from the auditorium?
Yes, please. Yes, good.
Sure. Hello.
Hello.
I'm a student here, and I want to ask, you had mentioned about high level of unemployment in students, yes? And I have a question. Does European Union took a road to fight this problem, or it's mainly national problems? And what is opportunity for students? And
No, it's a good question. I think youth unemployment is globally a European problem. You can't find in the world, except in the European Union, this gap between, if you see unemployment rate, for example, particularity of Europe is that if you look at unemployment rate and youth unemployment rate, you can see that in the big number of countries, except 3 or 4 in the European Union, the youth unemployment is the double as the unemployment rate. That means that even if the economic situation is whatever is good or bad, there is a specific problem in the European Union for young people, which is in contradiction with the demographic situation, with the aging society. Because how can it happen that we have, for example, if I see the case of Portugal or Greece, we have a decreasing demography, and in the same times, youth unemployment is higher than the normal unemployment rate. It's totally absurd. It's a big contradiction. But this means that in our aging society, there is a problem of lack of trust towards young people. It's typically European when you see when there is when a company or public service is looking for someone, they ask first. The first question is mainly experience, number of years of experience. Of course, when you are a student, you have no experience, so you are not qualified. Experience is, in this European aging mentality, becoming a discriminative criteria. So, to your question, I think that, of course, it's a question of national authorities. Employment agency or national employment policy is a national competence. But at European Union level, what we can do and what we're doing is first of all, try to exchange good or bad practices. For example, there is at least 3 or 4 countries where we don't have this gap between unemployment rate and youth unemployment rate. And this country is Germany, Austria, Denmark, Finland, Sweden. And if you look at these countries, you can see that they have, first of all, they have educations system which are apparently much more efficient than ours. They have apprenticeship system much more efficient than ours. Austria is an example. In Austria, you can find a young person between 18 and 25 always will find a job or an apprenticeship, is welcome in the companies. The intention toward young people is much better. So let's take this example. Let's take some of the good of the education system of this country, and I say that from my own country, because they were much more successful than ours. So using the best practice policies is very important. Take the good example of where it's working better for young people. This is why the European Union is useful to exchange. The second, of course, is financing, because European Union, the financial capacity of the European Union is bigger than at national level. And this is why when we support the idea, and discuss that with your Prime Minister today, but part of this 300 billion euros that the European Union want to spend for the next years for creating jobs and growth should be dedicated to education institutions, to university, to research and development. We can create jobs, to support of entrepreneurship, startup for young people. We are developing in our own committee, supporting for young entrepreneurs. We'll have a conference on young entrepreneurs and startup in next February, I think, to create a European network of young entrepreneurs. So I think the European Union can help with best practice, and with some financing of some key issues. We could help the question of youth unemployment, just as more support to the education system, to the university, more support to entrepreneurship and financial access. Give, for example, financial access for startup. I know a lot of young people who want to start their business, and they have no support from the bank, because the bank asks for guarantee. They don't have. If a family is not wealthy, they cannot have access to finance. So I would like to see the European Union develop a financial scheme for youngsters who want to start a business, which would be a good and positive initiative for young people. One of the things that we will propose to the European Commission, which is our role as European Economic and Social Committee, is exactly to listen to your comment, your suggestion, and to bring that to be implemented. Thank you.
So we still
yes,
have
there.
Okay.
Hello, I'm a student here, second-year student of political science, and I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you're worried about the decreasing in voting turnout for the European Parliament elections and the participation of citizens and trust in the European Union. And in your opinion, what should be done to increase the support and maybe voter turnout as well?
Yes, I think that one of the main reasons, there's of course a lot of it, but one of the main reasons of low turnout during European election is the fact that the citizens don't feel that their vote will change anything. You go to vote, for example, in your municipality. It's France, for example, it's in municipality election, but we have the highest participation, including in villages. Why? Because you know the people, and you know that, for example, I want the road in front of my house to be repaired. So I know that I go to the candidate and I say, if I vote for you, what you do for me? Do you will repair the road? You say, yes, I will repair, so I will vote for you. It's a simplification, but something like that. When you come to the European Union level, you vote for members of the European Parliament, who normally you don't know, political programs, and it's not clear at all what they will change. And in fact, if you discuss with them, if you ask them, so change the policy in Brussels, The answer will be yes, we'll try, but it's complicated. There is a parliament, there is a commission, there is a council, and blah, blah, blah. And what is, so the feeling when the people, the first European election, 79, it was, you were not born, so 79, the turnover, for example, in France was quite high, because people hope that in voting for personalities in the European Parliament, in Brussels, Strasbourg, they will make something. But after years, mandate after mandate, we see this European Union become more and more bureaucratic. They don't see real concrete improvement in their daily lives, specifically for the last 10 years, 15 years. So now they're feeling, I will have to vote for European election. So they vote because some more motivated person, politically motivated person vote, but they don't have the feeling that it changed something in their life. So how to improve that? This is exactly the topic I discussed with your Prime Minister today, and Minister of Foreign Affairs, but mainly with Prime Minister, is how to make the citizen feel that their voice will be heard, and that they can actively participate. It's, in fact, the horizontal priority of the EU Latvian presidency is to develop this involvement of the citizens, of the civil society in the European decision-making process. And this is why we have to find ways whereby direct consultation of citizens, by citizens' initiative, you know this, now citizens' initiative, if you collect more than 1 million signatures among more than 7 member states, you can put legislative procedures. If you develop more discussion like this discussion today between European Union leaders and citizens, students, if you develop I would say the e-democracy, it would be one of the projects of a digital agenda to have the e-democracy, but think that with digital card, you can be consulted and to have your say on all kind of question. I had a discussion today with your Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he told me that how we could make European Union more citizens-friendly. Exactly your question, how to develop the turnover in election. And he was telling me, yes, but it will be very difficult to convince the people when you see, for example, he take the example of GMO, genetic modified, about the fact that despite a vote of European Parliament, despite the will of a majority of European citizens, due to the role of a lobby by the European Commission authorized some GMO, although it was against the will of a majority of the citizens. Things like that prevent the people to vote because they don't have a feeling that their vote is useful. So we have to recreate, with some very concrete case, the fact that you can have your say. So by increasing the power of the European Parliament, by increasing, sorry to say that, power of a modest committee in impact assessment of European Union legislation, in preventing the EU to have too many useless regulation, but more focus on what is needed, in having good policy, in the mentality, in the attitude too. I think the attitude of Brussels civil servant is sometimes too arrogant, not enough coming to listen to the people. It's all complex, and I think, but I think if we don't solve this problem, I can prognostic that the next European election in 2019 could be the last one. 2016 or 17, the UK is forcing their 17 their referendum. I can promise you, I can tell you, if the UK population say no to the European Union, it will be followed by others, maybe by Nordic countries. And it could be the beginning of the end. So this question of mistrust of population is fundamental. Changing the policy, making more friendly policy. For example, focusing the EU policy on what is important. What is important today is energy policy, competitivity, youth employment, the question of security with attitude towards Russia. These are the important things. That is important for our generation. The demographic challenge, the migration question, these are the important challenge. And not to regulate way we are putting water in bottle. But the European Union has more staff working in these things than to work, for example, for migration policy or for social policy. Or for education policy. This is the reality today in Brussels. So first to change, but in the same time to change the governance, to listen more to you. Thank you for your good question.
Thank you. Since I know you have quite a tight agenda, and I assume there might be some more questions, nevertheless, students have chance to send the questions to you by electronic means. I would like to say thank you for your very interesting lecture, and I assume students also have something to say to you, to remember us. Please.
We are very grateful for your time, so we prepared a gift for you from our faculty and students. It is a cup for coffee or tea, so you can remember us with warm and, we hope, good memories. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You can give to your colleagues or you can distribute, because you can contact me on Facebook, Twitter. Twitter is Malosori, the changing, and first the name and after the surname. And I always answer, we always answer, so we are not maybe the most powerful European institution, but we are the most friendly one. So don't hesitate to contact us. And we represent you anyway, we are representative of young people. There will be a new EESC mandate start next year, so you are welcome. Some of your representatives can join us. Or we have a traineeship stage in our institution, like all European Union institutions, but we welcome stagiaires from your university. So thank you for the gift and all the best to your university. Thank you.